بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على حبيب إله العالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to welcome you all to this session. And before we start, I would like to extend our gratitude to Samahat al-Sayyid, Abdi Sattar Musawi, Sayyid Saleh, Al-Muhanna, and all of the board members and organizers here at Ouladi, which is an organization that is focusing on education and youth empowerment in the community, specifically within the Iraqi community. So we commend them on their efforts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless their efforts. And inshallah, this session is one of many sessions catering to our youth, and hopefully in a language and in a way in which would be understood and hopefully very relevant. So the topic that we want to talk about, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk for a few minutes and then we're going to actually open it for a discussion. I don't want this to turn into a lecture. I want it to be a very dynamic discussion. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about what the issues are, and then we'll open it for questions for a back and forth dialogue, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. How many of you here are in high school? Raise your hands. I just want to get an idea of the age groups here. How many of you here are university students? Okay, excellent. So as high school students, as university students, as young people, and inshallah I look around, everyone here is young. Just depends on the age, but relatively speaking, we're all young. At one point or another, one of the questions that we have in our mind is very basic yet very complex at the same time, which is, who am I? Where do I come from? What do I stand for? All of these questions revolving around the issue of identity. So a lot of times, especially as you go to college and you meet new people and you talk to different people, one question that people always ask is, who are you? Where do you come from? And as individuals who, some of us maybe are born overseas, the vast majority of us high school university students are probably born here. So we come from immigrant backgrounds. Our parents migrated here. And we take pride in our homeland, or the homeland of our parents. We're also citizens of this country, and we take pride in being citizens and residents of this country. We have our ethnicity, we have our faith, we have all these different dimensions to this idea and concept of identity, which for a lot of people sometimes it makes it complex. So when you ask someone, who are you? They might say, I'm Iraqi, they might say I'm American, they might say I'm Iraqi American, they might say I'm Arab, they might say I'm Muslim, they might say I'm Shi'i. It could be any of these, right? And sometimes you might ask as a follow-up question to get clarification. When someone tells you, who are you? You might say, do you mean which country? Are you referring to my faith, my ethnicity? And even when someone asks you, for example, where do you come from? In that question, there's an assumption that you're not from here. Where as citizens of this country, even if we migrated here, we are from here, and we are citizens of this country, and this is something that really ties into our identity. So, the question here is, when we talk about identity, and then from identity we talk about our faith and our culture, and how all of these things intertwine, especially for us being young people, individuals that want to be successful, individuals that want to build something for ourselves. This is a very important discussion. So when it comes to identity, when we ask this question, who are we? We have to ask ourselves what dimension, what angle are we looking at? Because a lot of times when we talk about identity, people talk about nationality. Iraqi, American, Lebanese, Iranian, whatever the case may be. Or it might be ethnicity, Persian, Arab, Caucasian. Or it could be, other elements of identity. All of these things tied into identity. What's important for us to focus on in terms of our identity, in addition to all of these different things, our nationality, our ethnicity, all of those are important. We should take pride in them. We should learn from them. But what's important for us, and this is what I want to focus on, is our identity that's based on principle, which is derived from our faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran, He states, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, O people, we have created you male and female and made you into nations and tribes so that you can get to know one another. The most honorable in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes is the most pious. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes, the standard, what's important, the assessment is not based on our nationality, whether you're Iraqi or Lebanese. It's not based on your ethnicity, whether you're Persian or Arab or Caucasian. It's based on piety, righteousness, based on this concept of taqwa, which is embedded in our faith. So if this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at us and assessing us, then we have to ask ourselves this question of, where's my faith in my life? How does my faith tie into my identity? So the idea here, and this is something for all of us to think about, is when we think about our identity and who we are and where we come from and what we stand for, although there are different dimensions to it, like I mentioned, ethnicity, nationality, all these things are important, but the most important thing is what? Our faith. Our religious principles and values that transcend time, place, that transcend and cross all nationalistic and ethnic backgrounds. That's why in one room you could have a bunch of people that share this common identity that revolves around their faith, but they might be, from different ethnicities, nationalities, socioeconomic statuses, etc. So the point here that I want to focus on, and we'll discuss this more, is for us, we should be proud of our faith. And when we talk about our faith, we are talking about our faith being Muslims that subscribe to the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And to take this even a step further, I'm going to go over something very quickly, and then I'll pass the mic to Hajj Muhammad'alli. So when we talk about identity that's rooted in faith and in religion, not nationality, not ethnicity, but that's based in religion, let's take this concept known as the 4 spheres of identity. I want you guys to focus on this. This is very important. So the 4 spheres of identity applies to us. How does that work? Think about it like this. Our identity is encompassed in one large sphere. And within that sphere, there's multiple spheres. Inwards, at the core, the first sphere is the identity of being followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, subscribers to the teachings of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his holy household, the Imams alayhim salam. So for all of us, that's the core identity, that's the starting point, that's the foundation that we build the rest of our ideological identity on, which is that we're followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We subscribe to that school of thought. We take pride in that. And there's over 300 million people across this globe that share this identity. That's the first sphere. Now when we expand outwards, we go to the second sphere that's more encompassing, that's larger, which is the Muslim identity. Here, this Muslim identity is more expansive. This is an identity that revolves around the belief in Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, where we believe in one God and believe in the Prophet being his messenger, ultimately the belief in Islam as a religion. And there's over 1.5 billion people that have that shared common identity. So while we're followers of Al-Bayt alayhi salam, that's our first sphere of our identity, we're also followers of Islam, and we're within the framework of Islam as followers of Al-Bayt, and that's an identity that we also share with another 1.5 billion people. The third sphere, after the first one being followers of Al-Bayt alayhi salam, the second one being Muslims, the third sphere is we are monotheists. We believe in one God, which is shared by two other religions, Christianity and Judaism, and now we're talking about over probably 4 billion people that share this common identity on that level. People of different faiths, but they believe in one God. And that's an identity that we share with our Christians, we share with our brothers and sisters in Judaism. That's something that's common between us. And last but not least, when we go outside to the all-encompassing sphere, to the fourth layer, this is an identity that's found on us being human beings. Even if someone does not share your identity at the first level or second level or third level, even if they're not followers of Al-Bayt, even if they're not Muslim, even if they're not monotheists, as long as they're human being and you're a human being, you share a common identity with them. An identity that Imam Ali alayhi salam talks about in his letter to Malik al-Ashtar, where he states famously that a person is either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity. Even on that human level, there's a common identity where there's rights and obligations. So what this teaches us is that in our religion, what we're taught is we're connected to each and every single person in our world in one way or another, through one of these four spheres, whether it's at the core, being followers of Al-Bayt alayhi salam, like us here today, we're brothers and sisters in faith, or even as human beings. And that's why this invites us to engage and interact with people around us in our community at the highest level, whether it's in school or in work or in any form of engagement. We should be open to interacting with people from other faiths, from other cultures, even if they don't have a faith, because there is a common identity, but we need to do it within the parameters and boundaries of our faith in a way that can be very beneficial and fruitful for us. So keep that in mind, and then inshallah we'll come back to this when we have the discussion. But the point here, dear brothers and sisters, is that we need to be concerned about identity. We need to take it very seriously, an identity that's focused on our religion. Being followers, proud followers of the Muslim faith, and specifically the school of thought of Al-Bayt alayhi salam. And being Muslim Shia, that teaches us that we need to engage with other people, whether they share that common identity with us or not, even if it's on the human level, in a positive way, where we can build meaningful relationships that can serve us and serve the greater community. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So the topic of tonight's discussion is identity, faith, and culture. And I won't bore you for too long before we get into hopefully a very interesting and intriguing discussion about these topics. But before we go on to that, I want to put the idea of religion in perspective. What is religion that we're talking about? If you go to a dictionary and you look up the word religion, you see it defined as a belief and worship of a deity, of God. So, what does it mean that we believe? I think Sayyid Badr went through some of that. So belief is a part of our religion, but there's also a part that is worship, that is a general obedience to a set of rules that we call religion. And I think this is the area where some of us might see that there might be a clash between our identity, between culture, and between our faith. Because our faith sets some guidance, some rules that we need to follow. So we go back to the long history of prophetic traditions. You see that Prophet Musa ﷺ came down with a set of commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Those are some of the general principles that come with religion. But there are also some minor rules, some particular rules that we are supposed to follow as part of our religion. For example, don't listen to music, don't eat certain types of food, food should be prepared in a certain way. Those are some of the rules that come with our religion that we generally should follow if we adhere to that religion. So we have to step back and ask ourselves, what is the purpose of those rules? What is the purpose of religion? And to answer that question, we got to take an even further step back and ask, what is the purpose of our creation? So if we look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what we know of His creation, of all the creations, we find that the creation of human beings came with a particular distinction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a lot of, let's say, animals, beasts, that He gave them a number of powers, of faculties, abilities that they generally use to survive in this world. But He also created a set of beings, let's call them the angels, who He gave a particular ability to. He gave them the ability of reason, of intellect. And He gave to the angels that particular power without giving them the other powers and desires that He put in the animals for them to continue their lives. What was special about the creation of mankind, about our creation, is that we were given both. We were given the power of reason that was given to the angels, and we were given the power of desire and other abilities that were given to the animals. And we are told that for us, if we let go of our reason, we let go of our intellect, and we follow our desires, at that point, we go to a level lower than that of the animals. And if we use our reason to overcome our desires, to overcome those base instincts of animals, at that level at that instance we rise to a level that's higher than the levels of the angels. And so this gives us a perspective on why we were created. We were created to be able to reach that level of perfection that's higher than the angels. And we do that by using our reason to overcome our base desires and instincts. So that's the general perspective of religion. We were created to reach perfection through intellect and through reason. So what is religion? Religion, as one of the scholars in the whole state of Najaf described one time, he said, life is like a mountain. In life you are trying to achieve excellence by climbing that mountain. Religion is your rope. You use that rope to climb up the mountain to reach that level of perfection and excellence that you are meant to achieve. So in that perspective, we go back and ask, does religion conflict with, let's say, science? No, because religion should be compatible with science, because both are instruments of reason. You use your reason, you use your intellect to derive scientific principles. The same way, you use your reason to think about religion and to come to conclusions that are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers and the close servants that He appoints. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us religion as a means of guidance in our journey towards perfection, in our journey of climbing this mountain. If we let go of religion, then you're falling off the mountain. You're falling down the slopes of the mountain, down to the abyss of, you can call it the valley at the bottom of the mountain, you can call it hell. That's a metaphor that we can use. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in giving us this rope of guidance that we use to climb the mountain towards our excellence, He set general principles that we should not that we shouldn't go against. He set general boundaries that we shouldn't go against. And those boundaries are what we should look at when we are trying to determine whether our religion conflicts with a part of our identity or a part of our culture. So one perfect example of this is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Holy Prophet Muhammad and he asked the people to follow him, he didn't give them a comprehensive and complete sort of controlling way to live their lives. He didn't tell them what to do in every instance, every second of their lives. No, people were living a certain way, and the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave them general principles, general guidance about how they should continue to live their lives, but in a way that will take them closer and closer towards that excellence. And one perfect example of that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses, for example, trade, how people make a living. He says, Allah allowed for trade, but he forbade usury. Why? Because people, back in the day, people were trading. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't send the Prophet to end everything that people were doing. He didn't send the Prophet to control what people were doing, but to guide it in a way that, yes, you continue doing what you're doing, but you stop doing the bad things that you may have been doing. Usury is a form of evil, a form of injustice, you might call it, so that's why it was forbidden. So this is the general perspective of religion. It is a means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us to reach closer towards our excellence and set of boundaries that we should not cross in that journey. So, with that perspective, and if Zaydni, if you have anything to add, or should we move on to the question and answers?
Can I ask a question?
All right.
Before you ask them a question, please, will you introduce yourself and your respectful attorney, Dr. Ali, and please.
So, Sayyid Abdul has asked us to introduce ourselves. So I guess that was missed at the beginning of the program. My name is محمدعلي Benoon. I am an attorney with the law group. Sayyid?
For your education, please.
So I have a JD, a Juris Doctorate from Wayne State University.
How old are you?
Social Security number, credit cards.
This question. In what age you got this degree?
Yeah, so I got Juris Doctorate. I was 22, yeah.
So my name is اباذرتاج. I'm also an attorney with the Law Group. I see محمدعلي every day at the office. He's probably sick of me by now. I'm not sick of him. And I also completed my law degree at Wayne State at the age of 24. In addition to our law practice, we do a lot of community work. One thing that personally I have a great passion for is working with the youth. That's why we're here today, to speak to you guys, to discuss this topic with you, to get to know you more, and to also listen to your thoughts and ideas. That's why I wanted to keep this brief. We're actually done with our presentation. The next thing that we wanted to do is to kind of have a discussion on something that relates to all of this. And I wanted you guys to share your thoughts as well. So I hope some of you guys won't be shy to share some of your thoughts. The question that I had for you guys after we talked a little bit about identity and faith is, because I hear this all the time, working with the youth, whether it's the sisters or the brothers, we hear this question all the time. Do you think in your life today there's a conflict between your religion and your culture? Whether that culture is what's more prevalent here in the US, or some of the elements of our culture that our parents and grandparents brought with them here. Do you think there's a conflict? Do you see there's a problem? Or do you think this is not something challenging that you're dealing with?
It's not really a challenge, but there is a problem. Whether it's the culture of our parents or the culture here. there's a conflict between religion and culture. But is it a problem? Depends on the person how they act. Depends on the person how he treats that situation. It depends on whatever the situation is.
Can you mention one example, Muhammad, just to kind of illustrate the point here?
Say there's in our culture we say ayb. Some things are really haram. We're supposed to say haram. This is haram. You're not supposed to do it. We say our parents, but some people say I have more than haram, which is no. You gotta state what's the truth is. It's haram to do this certain thing. It's not ayb. You know, that's when the culture and the religion conflict with each other.
Excellent. I think Muhammad kind of dove into it right away. There's certain things that our parents, grandparents, elders in the community, they teach us to refrain from doing these things. Don't do this because it's ayib or ayib. And the focus or the concern is not so much whether this act is haram or religiously problematic, but culturally it's frowned upon because it's looked as something that's abhorred. That's not something that is commendable within society. But what Muhammad is saying, and if I misunderstood you correctly, Muhammad, what Muhammad is saying is what we should focus on is the religious rulings on things, and not so much maybe certain cultural preferences, but rather what's halal and what's haram, and that there should be greater emphasis placed on what's haram as opposed to something that's considered ayib, which is basically something abhorred within the community. Is that correct, Muhammad? How many of you guys agree with Muhammad? Do you think that maybe in some of our cultures there's greater emphasis on cultural preferences and an emphasis on staying away from things that are abhorred as opposed to things that are haram? How many of you guys agree with Muhammad? I want to see hands. Can someone mention an example of this, something that maybe that you think ties this issue of ayib as opposed to haram? And the sisters in the back also, I would like to hear you as well. And if we have the second mic, can we have someone go around and
Mustafa,
pass it just so that we can hear everyone? And I'm going to stand up just so that I can see everyone, and then if you guys can see me at the same time. What's an example? Give me an example that illustrates this point of ayib versus haram, just so that we can all get an idea of what we're talking about. I know most of you guys are shy, which is fine. Well, Muhammad was the first one that was courageous, so let's... Can you think of an example?
It's not really a conflict between them both, but we have in our culture, mostly Iraqi culture, say if a lady wants to become a nurse, all that, some families will say it's ayib.
That's an excellent example. That's a spot-on example. Excellent example. So one of the cultural things that we look down on that's not really commended, it's actually abhorred, specifically in the Iraqi culture, is for the ladies to become nurses. So in the Iraqi culture, especially in Iraq, and I grew up knowing that also, it's looked down upon a female that enters the nurse profession for different reasons. Now, maybe some of these reasons are valid, some of them are invalid. Regardless, that preference is within a culture that does not exist here. It's within
say it's makruh, some people say it's haram.
So, Sayyid Mojuz. So, to give you a basic answer is music is haram. It's not makruh, it's not aib. It's flat out haram. Now, the question becomes what kind of music is haram? What is music that's categorized as haram? And if we look at the definition of the types of, let's say, music that is haram, from the words by scholars, it's music that is fit for gatherings of sin, basically. So if it's something that would be played at a bar, it's haram. If it's something that's played in places where people are just going there to basically places that are void of any kind of religious, spiritual, ethical kind of considerations, then that kind of music is haram. Now, there's a difference between scholars as to that definition. That definition that I'm giving you is based on the Fatawa of الثاني. If you go back to say الهوية, there's a whole different discussion. But generally, if you stay away from music that is of that sort, it's not just about the lyrics, but if you listen to the lyrics on most of these songs, then you'll see that it's something that's teaching a sort of a way of life that's void of any kind of religious, ethical standards. Now, other than that kind of general rule, if you look at some of the narrations of the debate, some of the hadith, we find that music is specifically forbidden for a reason. Our imams tell us that listening to music weakens the individual's will. It weakens your ability to stop yourself from going into other types of haram. It weakens you from having the strength of will to keep up with the types of obedience and worship that Allah wants from you. So you can kind of call music a gateway sin, if you want, because it leads to others. So that's why music by itself is given that high of an importance as a sin. So I think that got us away a bit from our discussion about the clash between culture and religion, but that's to answer your question. So let's hear from someone else. Do you think there is a clash between your identity, your culture, and your religion?
Why with some genders or some males and some females with other people, their clothes are different for their identity? How you wear your clothes is they describe it as your identity.
Okay, excellent question. So you're asking whether or why someone's clothes, for them, they tie it to their identity?
Why does your clothes have to matter with your religion?
Oh, okay. So this goes back to what Hajj محمدعلي talked about, and this is very important. A lot of times when I teach classes, usually the first class, I try to talk about what religion is, what is the purpose of religion, and what's the application of religion in our life. A lot of us, we have a misunderstanding of what religion is and how religion applies in our life. For a lot of us, when we say religion, when we talk about religion, what comes to mind? I'm going to do a quick experiment here, okay? I'm going to come around. Just tell me the word that comes to mind when I say religion. Don't think about it too much, just give me the word. Allah, Muslim, obedience,
prayer,
Allah.
Now, sisters. Belief? Okay.
Allah,
Quran. What you guys mentioned right now kind of proves this point, which is a lot of times when we talk about religion, we restrict it and we limit it to worship acts and rituals. That's why we mentioned Quran and we mentioned Salah. Now, when we talk about our religion, to have a holistic understanding of our religion, like Hajj Muhammad'alli talked about, we need to understand how our religion, how our faith truly translates in each and every single action in our life. Like Hajj Muhammad mentioned, think about religion as that rope that you need to use to climb to the top of the mountain. When we talk about religion, sometimes we restrict religion to the mosque, to Salat, to Laylatul Qadr, to Muharram. All of these things are extremely important. They're part and parcel in our religion. In fact, our prayers is the pillar of our religion. Our religion cannot exist, it cannot even build itself if not for its pillars that hold it, which are our prayers. However, there's more dimensions to our religion than just reciting the Holy Quran, our prayers, fasting, etc. The other dimensions is that our religion guides us in each and every part of our life. Our religion guides us in our marriage. Our religion guides us in school. Our religion guides us in work. Our religion guides us in dealing with our parents. And that's why it's very important to understand what our religion tells us in each and every part of our life, including something as simple as clothes. Now, wearing clothes is very important. Why? Because that's part of you, and that's part of the perception that you create with other people about who you are. When you see someone wearing a suit, very well dressed, and they're wearing a suit, it gives you a certain impression, right? When you see someone wearing a tank top and shorts, it gives you an impression, right? In our profession, as lawyers, do you guys know that you can't actually, a lawyer can't stand before a judge without a tie? And the other day we had an attorney, they just started, they never knew, they went before a judge, they had a hearing and the judge told them that basically you can't stand before me unless you wear a tie. Why is that significant? He's wearing a suit, he looks great, it's not like he's coming in his shorts or his pajamas. He's wearing a suit, he just forgot his tie. But there's etiquettes in the courtroom. There's a certain culture in the courtroom. So our clothes and the impression that we give to other people about who we are, part of it is the way we dress. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put significance on our clothes, the way we dress, both males and females, not only females, because a lot of times when we talk about clothes we just think about females, is because our body is the most important thing that we have. It's a trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And in terms of that trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, our body, we need to make sure we take care of it, we preserve it, and we present it in the best way possible, in an appropriate manner, given the time and place. That's why with clothes, it's very important and it's subjective to the time and place. The way you dress in the courtroom is different than maybe the way you dress at home. Or the way you dress with your spouse is different than the way you dress with someone that's not your spouse. It becomes appropriate and inappropriate depending on the time and place and the type of relationship. So the point here that the brother mentioned about clothes, our religion does tell us how we should dress. It does set boundaries. Those boundaries are not very difficult if we actually look at them and apply them, but it is important to look into that and to take it seriously, because with clothes, this ties directly into our bodies and who we are, and that's something significant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us. Let me ask you guys a question, a follow-up question. with our parents, and this is, this applies to me also, with our parents, do we sometimes feel like they tell us to do certain things or not to do certain things when it doesn't make any sense to us? So your mom or dad tells you, do this or don't do that, and you don't know why. You ask them why, and they tell you, this is just the way it is. Or, this is how it is in our culture. People do it like this, so we have to do it like this. Is this something that we have to deal with? Is this something that you guys deal with? Because I would tell you, I dealt with this when I was younger. My mom and dad used to ask us to do certain things, me and my brothers. And sometimes when we asked them why, maybe they didn't provide a reason, or at least a reason that made sense for us at the time. Now, for me, now it makes sense. As a parent, now I know why they did what they did, and I think they did the right things to raise us. But maybe at the time when we were young, it doesn't make sense to us. Is that something that that you guys struggle with?
I just want to add a little example. Let's say you have some kind of illness, you go to a doctor, and the doctor prescribes you a certain medication. You ask the doctor, why do I have to take this particular medicine? And the doctor will say, because you have this particular illness. But you ask him, okay, but why do I need to take this particular medicine to cure my illness? And the doctor won't have a clear answer, or an answer that you can understand for that question, because for him to be able to describe exactly why this particular medicine solves this particular illness, well, you'll have to go through medical school to be able to understand all the details of why this particular medicine will solve the illness, will cure the illness. So at some level, there is a level of expertise that you should look at that will have the answers, even though you might not particularly understand the full details of the answers. So in religion, it's okay to ask why, as we asked why about why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. We gave a simple answer to why music is haram. But if you ask me right now, why is Salat al-Maghrib 3 raka'at and not 4 and not 2? I don't have that answer, and I doubt that anyone does. None of the scholars might not have that answer, and even if they have an answer, it's probably an incomplete answer, because the only people that have the complete knowledge of those kind of questions are the complete experts that were given that complete expertise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are the Holy Prophet and the Imams. And ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has those most detailed answers, but you can't always expect to get every level of detail for your question. So when you ask why is music haram, yes, we understand some of the reasons why music is haram, but we might not have a full detailed answer to that. When you ask why is this particular, why are we obligated to wear a particular form of clothing, if it is indeed obligatory, then we might have a part of that answer, but we might not have the complete answer because we don't have the complete expertise. And we go to the experts and we respect the experts in their expertise because they dedicated their lives to trying to seek that knowledge and understand all that knowledge. And we have to be cognizant that we might not be able to fully understand the whys behind everything unless we want to dedicate the same amount of time and basically just go to Hausa and become scholars ourselves. So at some point we do have to stop asking why and just have some faith in the expertise that was acquired over years and years and years of study.
Going back to that thing about asking why, it's like when you see an older person doing something wrong and you ask your parents, like you want to tell them that they're doing something wrong, but your parents tell you not to, and you ask why, and they say because like they're older and they have a higher priority and they understand more. Like why can't we ask questions about that?
You're asking why? Can you repeat the question? Can you?
Yeah. So like when you see an older person doing something bad, okay, or something not right, and you want to tell them that they're doing something wrong, but your parents tell you not to because they have a higher priority and they understand more, and why can't we ask them?
So I would challenge it. I would say it's a problem for us to say that we're not going to question someone that's older just because they're older. that's a problem. Or even just because they know more than us, or just because they have more experience. At the end of the day, with the exception of the prophets and the Ahlul Bayt, we're all fallible people. We all make mistakes. None of us can say, that we're cleansed and we're purified in a way where we don't make mistakes, whether we're older or younger, whether we're more experienced or not, whether we're scholars or not. And even our religious scholars don't claim infallibility. So just because someone is older, it doesn't mean that we can't ask them why. But the but here, which is important, when we're dealing with someone that's older, and sometimes we lose sight of this, we need to make sure we have the right approach with them. With our elders, the most important thing is respect. We need to respect our elders. We need to truly show them that we care about them, that we respect their age, we respect their wisdom, we respect their experience. Even if we ask them a question, there should be an etiquette. The example that comes to mind is, it's narrated that one day Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, they saw an older man doing wudu wrongfully. So this older man was performing wudu, but he wasn't doing it right. So Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, they saw that this guy is performing his wudu problematically. They wanted to basically tell him that you're doing your wudu in the wrong way. You need to fix it so that you could do it properly. Now what did they do? Did they go up to that young man and tell him, hey yo, like your wudu is a problem, or what are you doing, or I can't believe you're 60 years old and you still don't know how to do wudu? That's not the approach. The approach that they took is that between them, I don't recall, one of them, Imam Hassan alayhi salam or Imam Hussein, asked the other to watch him perform wudu. Actually, they asked the man to see them performing wudu, to tell them whether their wudu is right or wrong. And by doing that, when they performed wudu properly, that the man noticed the mistakes that he made. So that was their approach. They didn't tell him, your wudu is wrong. They just told him, uncle, we want to perform wudu. We want to see if we're doing it properly. Can you watch us? Can you observe us and tell us whether we're doing it properly or not? And when this man saw them performing the wudu, he realized what his mistakes were, and he knew that the way he did it was a problem. That's the etiquette. That's the respect. So in dealing with our elders, while they're not immaculate and they make mistakes, and sometimes we need to point these out, we need to make sure we use the right approach, and underlying that approach, always there should be the utmost respect, especially when it comes to our parents. And then I saw another hand.
When, let's say you're praying or like...
Take the mic.
Let's say we're praying or doing like something having to do with the religion, and another person comes up to you and interferes with you. What are you supposed to do to help that, like to stop that person to help stop that person interfering with yourself?
So what do you mean interfering with you? Are they like asking you to stop praying, for example?
No, like trying to make you laugh in prayer, or trying to like move you around in prayer, or like take the tug.
Move your mic.
Like move the tugwire or make you laugh or something.
So my daughter does that all the time to me. I have a 10-month-old daughter. Every time I'm praying, she comes and she tries to take the turba away. So now what I do is just I carry it with me. So maybe with her I solve the solution, but maybe with someone trying to make you laugh, it might be a little bit more difficult.
Okay, so my question is, in the Quran it says that men and women are equal, but typically in our culture, why is it that males are the higher power?
So I'll give you the simple answer to this question, which is when it comes to the rights and obligations of males and females, and even the relationship and the status, we need to draw that from our religion. We should not draw that from our culture. Now, with culture, there should be certain cultural considerations that we take into account. And what we're saying here is not that we should dismiss culture completely. Culture is part of our life, and there are certain cultural elements in our lives that we should respect, and a lot of times they can be very positive, and we should actually embrace them. For example, in the Arab culture, generally speaking, generosity is the norm, al-karam. Now, generosity is a great thing. Even in our religion, it's something that's very commendable. So we should embrace that. We shouldn't, demonize that just because it's something in our culture. The question here, or the argument here is that it's not that we should dismiss our culture or throw it out the door, but rather that we should be very cognizant of our different cultural elements and norms, and we should only adopt and embrace that which is in line with our religion and our faith. So when it comes to men and women, Islam's take on that is that men and women are equal before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes as human beings. However, they have different roles and obligations, and sometimes that might be kind of subjective to the different cultures and the different norms. But ultimately, like we mentioned earlier, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes, the ultimate standard for all people is piety. It's not certain things that we might embrace in our cultures when they're baseless in our religion. So yeah, when it comes to the status of men and women and the relationships, a lot of times there's certain cultures that have certain takes on those issues that are not necessarily in line with our religion. We should stick to what our religion tells us about those matters. Let's conclude here. If any of you have any further questions, you can stick around, and then we'll be here. I would like to thank all of you for attending. I hope you found this beneficial. Inshallah, we can have more of these discussions, and hopefully they can be in very relaxed and formal environments. Also, I would like to thank Samahat al-Sayyid and also Samahat al-Sayyid as well for hosting us. And inshallah, we can continue these gatherings so that all of us can continue to learn from one another in our pursuit for bettering ourselves by truly investing in our religion. And the last of our words is Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
احنا ايضا باسم الشباب والشباب الموجودين نشكر من السيد الدكتور ابو ذر والحاج الدكتور حسين محمدعلي محمدعلي، وان شاء الله هذه بدايه طيبه ان تكونون قريبين من عندهم، لانه احنا فخورين بهم ونثق بنشاطهم وبما عندهم من افكار واهتمام بالشباب وعموم الجاليه. ان شاء الله تصير علاقه طيبه وقريبه، وهم اصحاب المكان، وهم ايضا من الناس الاوائل اللي ساهموا في تاسيس هذا المعهد. البايلوز والاوراق والكذا هم باعتبارهم practicing attorney as attorneys، هم يعني كان لهم الدور والادفايسنج للمعهد، ونشكر من عندهم باسمكم كذلك. الله يبارك فيكم. ونشكر من عندكم انتم وللاباء وابائكم اللي جاوا بيكم اهتموا، وهذا انتم لازم تشكرون من ابائكم اللي هم عندهم اهتمام كثير بوعيكم وتزينكم وتطوركم وب استفادتكم من مثل هكذا مواضيع ومحاضرات. الشكر لكم وشكر لهم، وهذا المكان مكانكم يا أولادي، وأنتم راح تكونون قيادات في هذا المكان، وأنتم تكونون تضعون سياسات وتضعون